The rotten royals from Old England. Britishers? Well, they have a more popular name: colonisers. England's royal Britishers are popularly known across the globe for bringing the dominating colonisation for many third world countries. They kept trying to capture such countries, get a hold of their government, and treat them like inferiors. Before colonising other countries, it was necessary to look into their set of rulers from the past. The rulers were unorganised about their reigns and had nasty habits, which are unknown. They were a set of rotten rulers who didn't believe in doing anything good for the people, and were not the polished rulers of England that we see today. Modern British kings and queens are well educated, sophisticated, and polite. They radiate refinement, style, and elegance, while also serving as moral authority figures for their followers. However, compared to the refined and polished successes today, the English kings and queens of the medieval and early modern eras were a far cry. The previous English rulers were vile, vulgar, and aggressive. By current standards, many of their behaviors, mannerisms, and acts are seen as unfriendly, nasty, or outright disgusting. They also frequently indulged excessively in their particular vices. Let's move on to the list of rotten royals. First on our list is William the Conqueror. William the Conqueror, the first Norman monarch of England, was a cruel and short-tempered leader who subsequently developed obesity as a result of his overindulgent love for food and drink. In October 1066, Harold Godwinson, the Anglo-Saxon monarch of England, was defeated by William, Duke of Normandy, at the decisive Battle of Hastings. The Christmas of that same year saw the day of his coronation. William was known to have extreme bouts of wrath and a short fuse. He once acted unsportsmanlike towards a French royal after he defeated him in a game of chess by smashing a chessboard over his head. William's overeating and growing fury as he grew older may have led to his early death and terrible burial. In his later years, William's stomach became so enormous that even portly Philip I of France remarked on his unusual potbelly and said William appeared pregnant. In 1087, William demanded the possession of the French country of Vexin from Philip. King Louis of France denied William's assertion. The obese William then led an attack on the French town of the Mont, where he may have fallen over the front of his saddle due to his bulging stomach. William mortally injured his internal organs and passed approximately 5 to 6 weeks later from an infection brought on by this injury. At William's funeral, the servants made a disastrous attempt to cram his lengthy and bloated corpse into a little grave. His decomposing carcass split open, and the foul odor from his rotting insides filled the space. The second on our list is Edward III. An evil king named Edward III led England into the 100 Years' War with France. Edward III became King of England in 1327 at the age of 14, when his mother, Isabella of France, overthrew her husband, King Edward II, with the aid of her lover, Lord Mortimer. Until he removed his mother's political control and had Mortimer put to death in 1330, the young King Edward was virtually a puppet of his mother and Mortimer. Even though Edward became king when he was just a teenager, he steered England into a bloody conflict with its adversary across the English Channel and held power throughout the Great Plague epidemic. He was always known for the repulsive behaviors of his youth. Edward had unclean fingernails and bad habits when learning things like reading when he was a child. Edward's instructors claim that he used to eat cheese and fruit while reading, leaving crumbs and liquid all over his books. Next, we have Henry V. Henry V was a paradoxical figure, but when he came to the English throne in the early 15th century, he was praised for his religiosity. Henry was a fierce warrior, possibly the best the nation has ever known, but he appeared more like a monk than a soldier due to his neatly cropped hair. Although there is no documentation of Henry V's birth, and the year of his birth remains unknown, it happened at Monmouth Castle, The latter is based on a horoscope allegedly ordered by the king before the Agnine Court War and was created specifically for him. The effort was probably only a pretext for the French astrologer to travel to England and speak with Henry, since he was subsequently falsely accused of being an English spy in Paris. Following that, the monarch appeared to have lost interest in the horoscope. Henry likely contracted his final illness at the Siege of Meaux, though it took some time to weaken him and take his life. Sieges were dangerous places for all. Unhygienic conditions and a lack of fresh water led to the booming of the disease of dysentery among the besieged and the besiegers. The fourth monarch on this list is Henry VII. Although the Tudor dynasty gives off the impression of pomp and grandeur, they may just be the messiest royal line in English history. After defeating and killing the Yorkist king Richard III during the Battle of Bosworth Field in 1485, Henry VII, the first Tudor king, was proclaimed King of England. Henry VII established the Privy Chamber around 1495. A group constituted to oversee the king's chambers. One of the Privy Chamber's members occupied a distinctive position that was well known, in high demand, and quite bluntly, revolting. The Groom of the Stool settled that status. The Groom of the Stool was in charge of affairs pertaining to the king's bodily excretions, which was a pretty filthy job. After his business, he took care of the king's stool-style portable lavatory and saw water towels in a wash basin provided to the monarch. The groom was also in charge of wiping the king's stool clean. The groom received the king's chamber pot and stool as a memento of his very personal royal responsibilities when the monarch passed away. Comparing these monarchs with the present ones is so contradictory. It is unbelievable how the tables have turned. Before we move on with the list, please subscribe to our channel and hit the bell icon to get notifications when we come up with new videos. The next is the famous female monarch, Queen Elizabeth. As the significance of Queen Elizabeth I, the Groom of the Stool declined in the 17th and 18th century. Queen Elizabeth finally abolished the position in 1837. However, the evil tradition of the royal tyrants persisted. The Lady of the Bedchambers briefly took the role of the Groom of the Stool during Elizabeth I's rule. The Queen was a highly disorganized ruler despite not having a Groom of the Stool. Bathing was a rare and unusual activity during the Middle Ages and early modern age. Whether she needed it or not, Queen Elizabeth reportedly only took a bath 4 times a year. Sugar from the Americas surged into Europe in the 16th century as Europeans started to explore and exploit the New World. Queen Elizabeth succumbed to a persistent sweet craving due to access to this new temptation, which was seen as a status symbol. She consumed so many sweets that eventually her teeth started to decay and become black. She covered her lips with a scented cloth before greeting guests to hide her terrible breath. She once spat on a courtier and yelled obscenities at him because she didn't like his coat. One can only imagine how unpleasant it would be to be spat on and screamed at by this irritable queen. Last on this list is James I. He's a cousin to Queen Elizabeth I and the first Queen of England from the Stuart dynasty. James was another unclean ruler who seldom took baths. James detested water and never gave his hands a thorough wash. He typically only took 1 bath yearly, since water was believed to carry infection. He only gently moistened the tips of his fingers with a napkin. As a result, James' poor hygiene, he continuously itched and had a foul body odor. He also refused to change his clothes. James only changed into new garments when his old ones wore out. He also poked his nose and drooled a lot. A place on the throne was taken by rudeness, terrible hygiene, and bad habits from previous generations of English rulers. With that, we come to the end of the rotten rulers of England. Well, rulers can be nasty concerning their politics, but to be nasty in their manner was entirely unexpected. I hope you liked the nastiness of the rulers and don't approve of it, but it's fun to know such things about rulers who are looked up to. Here we arrive to our ending. Please like, comment, and share with your friends, and have a good laugh about it. Remember to subscribe to our channel, Just History, and hit the bell icon to get notified when we post next. Check out our other videos from our channel.